Welcome to This One Thing, a daily video devotional coming to you from First Presbyterian Church of Fort Lauderdale. And in it, we are looking at one of the texts each day from the daily readings in the Revised Common Lectionary. And so yesterday, we talked about Jesus providing spiritual food. And on our text for today, Jesus is providing real food. Jesus is performing one of his most famous miracles. He's providing food for several thousand people. Jesus here in this story is responding to a need. So I want you to hear this coming from Mark chapter 8, and it comes from the first couple of verses of this story. And Jesus says this about the need of the people. He says, "I have compassion for the crowd, because they have been with me now for 3 days and have nothing to eat. If I send them away hungry to their homes, they will faint on the way, and some of them have come from a great distance." Yesterday, I was meeting with a small group that I'm a part of, and one of the guys that I meet with said, it feels like we're living in this significant period of history, and a time where things are changing, where we'll look back and realize that nothing was quite ever the same again. In some ways, a lot like 9/11, right? Not in the details, of course, but in that sense that this is a significant period. And as I thought about that and reflected on that, I could see other similarities as well, because it was in that time that we became acutely aware, right, of that there is some evil in this world, right? And as we think about this time and we think about this virus, we come to this understanding that there's just something not good there, right? That there is perhaps some opposing force. And I know that can even be a little uncomfortable to talk about the idea of evil. But I'm reminded of this quote that comes from one of my favorite books. It's the Lord of the Rings series by J.R.R. Tolkien. Perhaps you've read it or you've seen some of the movies. And in it, the forces of good are opposing Sauron, one of the forces of evil in this particular world. And there's this quote made by Gandalf, who is a wizard and one of the forces for good. And he has this to say about evil. He said, "Other evils there are that may come, for Sauron is himself but a servant or emissary. Yet it is not our part to master all of the tides of the world, but to do what is in us for the succor of those years in which we are set, uprooting the evil in the fields that we know, so that those who live after might have clean earth to till." I want you to hear that quote one more time. He says, "Yet it is not our part to master all of the tides of the world, but to do what is in us for the succor of those years wherein we are set, uprooting the evil in the fields that we know, so that those who live after may have clean earth to till." I love that metaphor of uprooting the evil so that future generations would have clean earth. In essence, Gandalf says, we have a job to do. And it is to do the good that's placed in front of us. It's not for us to figure out everything else and to know how everything else is going to settle out, but rather to do that good which is in front of us. In our text today, Jesus feeds 4,000 people. He performs this great miracle. But in order to do that, there must be hunger, right? In order to perform this great miracle, there actually had to be a need. And so I think one of the things that we learn there is that where there is hunger, where there is need, there's an opportunity for God to do something great. There's an opportunity for a miracle. And so here's the one thing for today. Will you join in what God is preparing to do? Will you open your eyes to see the good that is in front of you? Can you push away the distractions of everything else and resist the temptation to try and figure out everything else? And simply do the good that is placed before you. Will you open your eyes to see, open your ears to hear and listen, so that we may all join in what God is preparing to do here, bringing hope and love in the world, so that we might uproot evil that we know, so that future generations might have clean earth to till. Thanks for joining. We'll see you tomorrow.